If you're new to digitizing, you may be feeling overwhelmed about the software and where or how to get started. In today's video, I will be walking through the Hatch Embroidery 3 software and show you the tips and shortcuts I use most. Alright, so this video will be a beginner-friendly tutorial to help you get familiarized with this complex software and share the tips and tools that I frequently use to make digitizing easier. I've been using the software for about 2 years now to digitize designs for our small business, and I've learned a lot of helpful shortcuts that I'll be sharing today. I'll take you through every step of the way from opening the software to exporting a design to embroider on your machine. With that, let's jump into the software. The first thing I'm going to do is open up a new blank design. This is where you will be digitizing, and the first thing I would recommend is confirming the units that you will be working in. And switching between metric and inches is very easy by going to this drop-down menu or this arrow where you can switch back and forth between metric and inches. Next, let's talk about adjusting the scale of the grid. And as you're learning to digitize, you will learn about the recommended space between stitches. So you'll find the grid on the top row here, where you can turn it on and off to guide you through your digitizing. You're going to right click it. My recommendation would be to switch this to a 1 millimeter for both a horizontal and vertical axis. So once you do that, you'll see the change. It's gonna give you a lot more points to help guide that your spacing is as even as it can be. And at this scale, we're at 100% zoom. Obviously, there's gonna be lots of lines here, but we'll talk about that next. But first, let's go over adding artwork. Artwork will generally be your design that you're using as a guide to digitize, and I want to show you how to quickly access your images. And so to add your artwork, you're gonna locate the artwork here in your toolboxes, insert artwork. The file that I recommend that you pin to quick access would be this artwork folder where you can organize all of your different folders and art for your different designs. In this example, I will be using one of the artwork that is already a part of Hatch Embroidery 3 software, and I will be doing this palm leaf or this fern. So there it is. You can add any image that you will be embroidering into your files to add directly to program. You can resize from there. For me, it's easier to be able to resize the image in inches. So here I have the image selected. So to go back and forth between the metric and inches, you want to make sure you're not selected on any object in this digitizing space. And by right now, you can see that I have something selected because there's a black box around this object. So I'm just going to click out of it and this metric box will pop up. So I'm going to go back to US to inches, and I want this object to be 4 inches. So you can adjust that quickly. There we go. As I'm digitizing, it's easy to accidentally grab this object and move it around. And if I'm going to be digitizing this object, I kind of want to lock it in place for me not to do that. So you can right click and lock that artwork. So now as I'm digitizing, I'm not moving my sample. You can also, as you can see here, you can unlock by hitting the shortcut on your keyboard, which is K. The other thing I also want to highlight here is this square here tells me the center point of this image. And so sometimes when you're adding in images, if you already have another image in the program, it might put it somewhere else. And so you can just double check that this center point is at 0 and 0, just to make sure everything is digitized nicely when you're exporting your design. Real quick, if you've already already found some helpful tips in this video, then make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already so that you can continue to get some helpful tips along your embroidery journey. All right, now back to Hatch. So I'm going to go ahead and lock that again. So you can see here the status of that object is locked. The other thing that you can do with your artwork that can be helpful, I'm going to unlock this again, is dimming and undimming the artwork. Sometimes it's helpful for you to bring the full color back to life or dim it as you are digitizing and layering objects. I'm pretty sure though that you can also do that without unlocking it. Other than dimming, you can also completely disappear and reappear. So again, that is D for disappearing the artwork. All right, so now let's quickly talk about the scale at which you can be digitizing. And I've learned from digitizing courses with John Deere that you need to be consistent with the scale you are digitizing in. He generally recommends zooming in at either 300 or 600%. And again, just making sure that whatever you choose, you do that consistently. And there is a shortcut for this, and that is F on your keyboard. And you can either do the 3 for 300, and as you can see, the percentage will change over here. Or what I usually digitize in is at 600. So you put a 6 in that scale factor box. Here are a few other zoom shortcuts that I use all the time. The first one is 0, and that gives you that full screen mode, and 1 gives you that actual size display. So it's really helpful to quickly kind of go back and forth as you're digitizing to get that full view as you're zoomed in at 600%, right? So 0, full screen, and 1, actual size. Okay, now let's talk about digitizing tools. And I want to quickly emphasize that this is not a how-to digitize video. I would not be able to cover that in one video. I simply want to show you the common tools I use and where you can find them. And that takes us back to the toolbox side of your screen, and going to this Digitize drop down gives you a bunch of different tools, and the ones that are most useful in digitizing are your Digitize Open and Close Shape. So digitizing close shape is when you want to fill a space by using either a tatami or satin fill stitch. You digitize this by outlining the shape of the object, and digitize open shape is used to add detail to a design and generally consists of a running stitch where you use right and left clicks for straight and curve stitches. As you learn more about digitizing, you will learn how to use both of these tools to create beautiful designs. So now let's get into digitizing this design and getting some stitches down. For this fern leaf, I'm going to be using a combination of open and close shapes to bring this leaf to life. I will be using digitizing close shapes for each individual leaf and open shapes to have a running stitch in between each of these objects to avoid unnecessary jump cuts. So I'm going to go counterclockwise here, starting at this leaf, making my way around to this final leaf here. And then I also want to do this object, this middle part of this leaf. And if we look at the design, there's kind of maybe 3 shades of green. So this dark green, this is another dark green, and then this is the lighter one. So I'll also talk about how to add different color threads as well. When you start, open up the software, it'll always add all of these colors, which you probably don't have. So yeah, stay tuned. I'll show you how you can remove all of those and have your threads uploaded. For now, I'm going to dim this artwork. It is locked, and we're going to start with a close shape of this leaf and get into my zoom factor of 600%. All right, well, I'm going to zoom out and come back in to this one, show you that you can do that there as well. And going into my digitizing toolbox. I'm going to start with that digitizing close shape. So I'm going to make my way around. Again, this is not a digitizing video. As you're putting points down, you can either do a right click for the curve or a left click for a straight. And if you ever make a mistake, if I go way out here, you can simply hit that backspace and it starts deleting the points before. So don't be afraid if you make a mistake, you can always erase that or go back. I'm gonna do my right clicks all the way around. Go this way. It doesn't have to be perfect. You know, no one is going to see the artwork of your design. So once you get close enough, you hit enter. And here, as you can see, when I hit enter, it's going to fill that shape. Sometimes what happens is it accidentally or somehow you are on the outline shape and you might feel like, what did I do wrong? It didn't fill this. That's where you can go and double check or make that correction. So we want this to be a fill shape. When you press H, it shows you all of the points that you made. And if you made a mistake, like I wanted this to be a curve shape, you can highlight that point and hit spacebar and go back and forth between a curve or a straight point. All right, so we'll move along. You'll see here, sometimes it's really hard to find these. If I zoom in a little bit, this is a circle, and then this is a triangle. The circle is your start point of an object, and the triangle is the last stitch, the end point of that object. And so to avoid jump cuts, I want to make sure to start my next point at that triangle to make sure it's connected. So I'm gonna go back to my scale factor of 600 and switch to an open shape, and I'm going to do my first point here, and my next object that I'm going to work on is this one here, and I want to put that one there, hit enter, and go back to close shape to work on this next object. As you notice, as I'm hovering around the software, like if I go like this, it automatically pans for me, which is helpful. You don't have to be clicking the arrows to move through the design space. So I'll keep going, and when I'm close enough to that starting point of that object, I hit enter again. Hit enter twice, the first one to kind of complete the design and the second enter to fill the stitch. And so there's my second leaf, and I'm going to take a look. I'm highlighting the object and I want to see where is that end point. As you can see here, this is where I started, right? This object, and my end point is over here. You can manually adjust where to place those endpoints by, let me undo that so you can kind of see when you are hovering over the point, you'll see the kind of the crosshairs, the arrows. This is grabbing the point, the stitch point, and that's not what I want. So Control Z on my keyboard to go back. I want to see this little hand. The little hand is what's grabbing that end stitch crosshair. So when I do that, then I'm taking that and I want to put it here because this is where I want to start my running stitch to connect to the next object. So I'm going to place it here and I hit escape to unselect that object. I'm going to go back to the open shape. I'm going to make sure I start in that triangle, in that last point. I'm gonna put my last point there. And again, like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect around the object. You know, this is good enough. Hit enter once to make that last connection point. Enter the second time to get that fill stitch. Again, I'm gonna highlight it, pressing H to move this end point because I want it to end over here so I can connect my next point, the close shape, or excuse me, open shape, another running stitch here. And we're gonna move along. If you want to see kind of like a representation of the embroidery look of this design, you can do that by hitting the keyboard shortcut T for True View. It gives you somewhat of an idea of what this will look like when you embroider it. You can go back and forth between True View or not if you want to see the stitch points or the embroidery look. Okay, I'm going to go back to my last point, which was over here. There we go. We completed one side of this leaf, and this is what that true view looks like. And remember that shortcut of 1 on your keyboard gives you real life scale of the design so far. I'm gonna fast forward to the completion of the next row of leaves to make this process go a little bit quicker. The last thing I'll do is add that stem of this fern, and then I want to show you how you can individually change the angle of the stitches. So I'm going to select another color, because again, this is going to be the darker part of the design, the darker green. So I'm just going to click that color, digitize that close shape, F6. Hit enter, enter again, and it's that fill stitch. So true view, full screen, so you can see that final look for this fill stitch. You can have that be a satin stitch. You can go back and forth between those stitch types if you'd like. I'm gonna keep the tatami fill for now. The other thing I wanted to show you is changing the direction of the objects. I already have it complete on this side. As you can see, the direction of the stitches look different than this one over here. And you can quickly do that by selecting the object, hitting H again. You can see here there is another, this is an angle stitch here. When you hover over it, that angle icon pops up. That's how you can confirm that you are manipulating the correct point. And so I'm gonna drag this and change it how I wish. I hit escape, go to the next one, H point, looking for that angle, there it is. And I'm roughly gonna do that. Go to my next point. I need to make sure to hit escape so I can select another point, H. There we go, escape, H, and there it is. You can also manually, if you didn't want to ballpark, if you had a very specific angle that you wanted to achieve, you can do that by going to the stitching tab here in object properties and the stitch angle, where you can put the exact angle that you would like. Let's say 60. There you go. And I'm going to just complete all of these other ones really quickly. I'm also, as I'm moving along, sometimes you have multiple objects that you want to make sure that stay together. In this case, these leaves, I want these to be connected. And so you can either, in this object, in the sequence bar, I can go to the first leaf, and my sequence is here, each running stitch in between, shift and select that final shape, and then from here right click to, and let me find it, group these shapes together, which is up here. So a shortcut, I think, yeah, a Control G if you'd like to learn that shortcut. The other way that you can also do it, and I'm going to undo that, is go to colors, because it's going to organize them, group them all together based by color. Again, I purposefully chose 3 different colors. They didn't have to be the colors that I was going to use, at least now, but at least this lets me manipulate manipulate one sequence of colors or objects all at the same time. So in this case, these objects, I'm going to do the same thing here. I can right click and group those as well in that view. I want to also just quickly show you how to open up different what are called dockers. So sometimes as you're digitizing, you may accidentally close these windows. They might disappear. They should, for the most part, be on that far right hand side, so you can bring in those different windows, the sequence. This is kind of the main one that I usually have up. It shows me the object that I'm working on and the pattern, the sequence of those objects. I usually also have object properties open. So if for some reason, I can't remember how I've accidentally removed them from this right hand side, if for some reason you do lose it, you can quickly find those if you hover over, go click on window, dockers, and they should all be here. So you can also open them up through this window. The threads, which we will get into next. I'm gonna clear all of this noise down here because I'm not using all of these colors right now, all 62 of them. So I have 3 colors selected. They're not the colors that I'm gonna wanna embroider them in. You can simply hit this discard colors button on this bottom right-hand corner, and this will discard all of the colors that are not currently being used in the design. We should only see 3 colors when I hit this. All right, there we go. That always makes me feel better. Okay, so there is an easy way, well, somewhat easy way to add your threads that you have that you want to use for a design. As you can see here, these are the thread colors that I have used in the past for different designs. And you can do this too by clicking on this button here with the 3 check marks. And I've created what's called My Threads. So I'm going to show you how to do that as well. First, you will hit Manage. Then we're going to hit Create, and you can name this thread chart whatever you want. That could be My Threads, or it could be My Poly Neon Threads, My Matte Threads, whatever way that you want to organize your threads, you would name it here. In this case, I'm gonna just write for this YouTube video. Based on, this doesn't really matter. When you select this drop down arrow, it's going to give you all of the different manufacturers of threads that you can possibly think of. So if you do have a certain collection of threads that you are building for, let's say, Marathon Poly or Madeira Poly Neon, you can go ahead and select the one that's going to be most specific to that collection, but it really doesn't matter. So here I'm just going to select, let's see, thread art. Okay, you'll hit OK. And as you can see, it just brought in all of those colors, but like I said, it doesn't matter. We're going to remove all of these threads by hitting Clear All and hitting Yes. And now you have a clean slate, a new chart for you to start building. Now let's add threads. And you'll do that by hitting Copy, select the manufacturer of those threads that you have. In my case, the threads that I have been using have been Madeira Rayon. So this is all alphabetical. Madeira Rayon is here. And here are all of those colors for Madeira Rayon. And so you can grab a couple of these by clicking on it, Control to add a few other colors. Gonna hit OK. And so here are those colors that the thread colors that I selected. I'm gonna go ahead and close it. And I'm gonna look for that test YouTube thread collection that I just made. Bring it over that single arrow here to just bring that selected thread chart over, hit OK, and those colors have been added. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna remove my threads just so that this is not confusing and you can see that it was just those 4 threads that I added. I'm gonna double click it to put it away, hit OK, and now this is that thread chart that I just made. So let's say you got a few new colors for the Madeira rayon. You're gonna open up that thread chart again, highlighting that one. Let's manage it because we're gonna add more colors, more thread. To add the thread, we're going to copy, find that manufacturer, some Madeira rayon. And where are you? There you are. Okay, and let's say you are looking for a very specific color. You have the color and you don't know what the name is, but you do have the code. So just for simplicity here, I'm gonna add that 1066. It'll find it. You'll hit OK. And there's that cornmeal, close. And there it is. So one more time, I have that test. I'm gonna manage it. I'm going to copy, look for that Madeira rayon manufacturer, and let's see, add mustard. So I recently got the mustard color. Hit OK, close, OK, and there it is. For this design, I am going to go back to my actual threads that I do have. So I'm gonna put that away, find my threads that I have already curated, or the threads that I have. There they are. You can double click it, or like I did earlier, just that single arrow to bring it over. And I'm gonna go okay. I'm gonna go to the colors tab because I want to quickly change the colors of the whole group. I want to do the stem to be my darkest green that I have, which is that dark camo green. So I have the object selected. It changed the color, as you can see. And let's see, for this side, I want that one to be this fur color, and this one bluegrass. That's looking better. And there's the complete design. So now let's talk about exporting this design to your embroidery machine. Okay, so I haven't done this already, so make sure that as you're working on your design that you are saving your work as often as possible, especially after completing a large section of a design. You would go up here to File, Save Design As, keeping it in that EMB embroidery file type. So here I'm just gonna do test fern. Save it here. As you can see, I have different folders for the designs that I have worked on for our state crew neck collection. So the states that I have completed so far. But in this case, it's not going to be living in a folder specifically. So I'm just going to name it here and save it in my designs. To export your design, you want to save the file, export it in the file type that your embroidery machine reads. Most embroidery machines accept PES, so you'll go to File, Export Design, and you can select again based on the language that your embroidery machine reads. Quickly change that file types. For my machine, PES is the acceptable file type. And there it is. So I can now transfer this design either onto a USB drive to connect physically to the embroidery machine, or in my case, my Baby Lock machine comes with this database transfer where I can wirelessly transfer the file to my embroidery machine. My database transfer is already set up. I have my machine connected wirelessly. So I'm going to look for that file that the file was exported to, which was in my embroidery, my machine files, and the files that you have will populate here. As you can see, the state designs that I've already exported and embroidered. So this is the design that I want to transfer over. So I will click on it, bring it down, and hit this button here to transfer.
And there we go. And of course I had to have my embroidery machine on so that that connection was made. So it finished outputting and I can embroider it on my machine.
Well, I hope that these shortcuts and overview of the program helps you feel more comfortable in navigating the software. And if you're interested in seeing the designs that I digitize and embroider, then check out this video where I bring an Oregon coast design to life on an Oregon crew neck for our States crew collection. See you there.